Hello again, students. I opened the data file for exercise 2, for assignment 2 I should say, and I'm not gonna make an exercise because I want you to make those exercises yourself, but I'm gonna make a video which possibly gives you some support with making those exercises. On page 83 of your book, The Government and the Economy, there is figure 4.5, which states a relationship between affluence and trade, and it's depicted in the sense like on the horizontal x, trade as percentage of GDP, and on the vertical x, GDNP per capita in US dollars. Both data files or data points are from the year 1990. Okay, if for instance if we want to make a scatter diagram, how should we do this? We go to graphs, scatter, a simple scatter diagram, define. What do we want on the vertical x? We want this one here, GNP per capita. What do we want on the horizontal x? Impacts. These strange names, this represents GNP per capita and this represents trade. It's in the exercise, so probably it would be wise first to read the exercise. We click on OK. Then we see our scatter diagram. Okay. First of all, now, just some tricks. Double click on the graph. We open the graph charter. If we want to make some adjustments here, for instance, the graph in the book gives squares instead of circles. Click on those points. Right mouse button, set properties. You see, we want to type I. Now, this doesn't tell you anything about statistics, but more helps you out. How does SPSS work? Another thing is, if we want to, for instance, create this regression line in it, how can we do this? Click on graph again, and here, this thing here, add fit line to total. If we put this, it by standard it generates a linear regression line in it. Click close, and we see this is the regression line that is in the book. It also gives us R square. That is not that much. A little under 6%, so that is not a lot. Maybe if we want to adjust the horizontal x, how should we do this? Click on scale, and we see, for instance, that the graph in the book has a maximum of 450 and an increment of 150. So if we click on apply, get the same here. You see. Another thing, click on it again. If you go to number format, it has 2 decimal places. We want 0 decimal places, so none. Close. We click on the vertical x. No decimal places. Another thing, to increments by 10,000. So if we click on scale, so the increment should be 10,000. So up, apply. And here we have the same graph as in the book. You see, it already standardly creates a linear regression line if you just click on this button here. Okay. So here we have the graph in the book. So this is how to create a scatter diagram. Just click this away. No, we don't want to save it. And I think, how can we run a regression? And how should this regression be stated? First of all, what is the dependent and independent variable? Trade explains affluence. So trade, or in our sense, in our data file, MPEX 90, which is represented by the trade as a percentage of GDP, MPEX, is the X variable, and the Y variable is affluence, or GNP per capita. So if you want to run a regression, how should we do this? Go to Analyze, Regression. Now, let's get a linear regression. MPEX, that is our independent variable. What do we want to explain? The GNP per capita. Some statistics, maybe covariance, collinearity, Durbin and Watson for serial correlation. Click on Continue. Some plots. Now this plot is always in handy to see if the residuals are normally distributed. Continue. Here you can save for outliers and influential statistics. I won't do this. You will have to do this in the exercise yourself. Some other options? No, I think we're fine. Let's play. And here, what do you see? For instance, this is what we already saw when we make the scatter plot, but R squared, a little under 6%. So how should we interpret R squared? A little under 6% of all variance in GNP per capita is explained by trade as a percentage of GDP. This is what is 6%. So 6% of the variance is explained by trade as percentage of GDP. What do we see here? We see our constant and we see our regression coefficient. We see there are both significant with 95%. This is just in and this is far in that sense, like they're both significant by 95%. These things you should look at for multicollinearity. We'll talk about this later in the lectures. And what do we see here? This is something we don't like, because here we see that the residuals are not normally distributed. They are way off this 45-degree line. So more in the sense like this is a problem. We cannot use this model in this fashion. We have to do some altering. We'll talk about that later, but this is just some basics about scatter diagrams and running a regression, how to interpret the T statistics and the significance levels. I hope this is helpful, and hopefully you probably already know how to interpret these things. We will talk about them during the lectures.